The Monte Cristo Homestead. Christopher William Crawley was a farmer who purchased 2 plots of land in the area of Juni to build a house for his family. For the Crawleys, the first few years were difficult. Christopher struggled to feed his family and they lived in a slab hut. When the Great Southern Railway line opened in 1878, his fortunes changed. He gathered together all of his money, and purchased a permit to construct the Railway Hotel, just across from the soon-to-be-opened railway station. That turned out to be a brilliant move. Juni's settlement was comprised just of Crawley's Hotel, the adjacent railway store, and a few slab huts. The travelers and agricultural commerce helped the entire town greatly. Crawley got quite wealthy, and he was even one of the town's founders. He was well liked, because he was a charitable man with a strong sense of social responsibility. The family, with their 7 children, resided in a tiny brick cottage prior to the construction of the new homestead in 1885. Crawley sold his hotel in 1884, and used the proceeds to create his estate. The old slab hut was torn down, and replaced with a large stable for his beloved horses. The modest brick cottage, known as the original homestead, is still standing. The servants' quarters were converted from that home. The new house, a 2-story late Victorian-style mansion, became a status symbol, and because it was constructed on a hill, it had a panoramic view of the whole town. Their daughter Ethel Crawley died as a newborn, after a nanny dropped or pushed her down the stairs. The nanny claimed that she was shoved at the moment when the infant was dropped. When youngsters visit the house today, they get a feeling of unhappiness, or uncomfortable on or near the stairway. Others have reported feeling hands pushing or restraining them. Others say to have felt a child's little chilly hand slip into theirs, as they walked up or down the steps. One of the housemaids became pregnant while working there. The father was speculated to be Mr. Crawley himself, with many thinking it to be him. It was reported as a suicide when she plunged to her death from the balcony. Some people feel she was shoved. Some think Elizabeth Crawley was the one who shoved her, killing her and her unborn child. The home today has a bleached step leading up to it, as a result of cleaning up the maid's blood. Mr. Crawley may have fathered Harold, the son of another maid. Harold was engaged in an accident as a newborn and sustained a terrible brain injury. He was left mentally disabled and chained in the caretaker's cottage for 40 years. After the death of Elizabeth, Harold's mother was left in charge of the estate. For a long while, it was just her and Harold at the home. Still chained to the wall when his mother died, Harold was trapped for days with no food or water. Harold was discovered curled up in bed at his mother's feet before it was too late. He was hungry and thirsty. Harold spent the remaining years of his life in a mental institution. Despite the fact that he did not die at the Monte Cristo homestead, his spirit is said to haunt the grounds. Local children claimed to have heard howls and cries originating from the homestead. They were all certain that the land was home to a monster. They played games and snuck about looking for the monster. Harold would hiss at them on the rare times they did. On December 14, 1910, Christopher Crawley died in his own home from a combination of heart failure and blood poisoning. A carbuncle on his neck caused the latter. Rubbing against his starched collar caused it to become inflamed. Elizabeth Crawley, his wife, was unable to deal with her husband's death, and barricaded herself inside the home. She spent the majority of her time in the attic, which she had converted into a little chapel. She only left her residence twice in the remaining 23 years of her life. She died in the mansion on August 12, 1933, at the age of 92, from a burst appendix. Another ghost is that of Morris the stable boy. It was considered unacceptable that he said he was too ill to work. The stable master set his bedding on fire, expecting him to rush out of bed, believing he was lying. Instead, the boy perished in a fire. This boy's spirit is still dwelling in the coach house, yelling and making himself known to anybody who enters. Then in 1961, the caretaker Jack Simpson was murdered. Inspired by the Alfred Hitchcock film Psycho, a young boy in town went to the Monte Cristo homestead and banged on the door. When Jack responded, he was shot in the head and killed instantaneously. The killer carved the words, "Die Jack, ha ha," into the shed door, which can still be seen today. The mansion was kept vacant for more than a decade after the last member of the Crawley family left in 1948. Several caretakers were there, attempting to keep an eye on things, but they were unable to prevent the property from being vandalized. All of the house's original furniture were removed and sold. The home remained in bad condition, until Reginald and Olive Ryan purchased the Monte Cristo Homestead in 1963. The Ryans returned the home to its original condition. They transformed it into a tour museum. They also have an antique store inside. Although Reginald died in 2014, his wife Olive is still going strong. When the Ryans first arrived at the homestead, they instantly spotted something unusual. When they arrived to the house with their possessions, including their cat and dog, they discovered that the animals refused to enter. Later, as they went out for the evening, they saw that all the lights were turned on when they approached the home, but they were turned out when they opened the front door. At least 10 spirits haunt the homestead. Some are more noticeable than others. One thing is certain, the previous owners despised pets. They also despised them in the afterlife. The Ryans returned home one night to find their whole flock of hens strangled to death in their poultry run. In addition, their parrot died of choking in its cage. And a litter of kittens that had been nurtured in their breakfast room were ruthlessly murdered. The ghost of Christopher Crawley now remains in the room where he died. His spirit is as kind as it has always been. His wife, on the other hand, has remained relatively unchanged since his death. She still has an iron grasp on the home, scrutinizing everyone who dares to enter. If she doesn't like you, she'll try to frighten you away by gripping your face with icy cold air. Their 2 maids are also said to haunt the home. The one ghost haunts the veranda, the other is seen in various locations. The Monte Cristo Homestead is now a museum and an antique shop. Visitors may take a tour of the homestead and learn about Junie's history as well. Some tours even allow you to spend the night. Those who choose to spend the night in the servants' quarters receive the finest sleep of their lives, or no sleep at all, according to Mr. Ryan. Some guests don't make it through the night and drive into town and stay there. They have reported seeing infants or servant spirits when they wake up. Monte Cristo has been on several television series such as Scream Test, a paranormal game reality show, in 2000, Ghost Hunters International in January 2010, and My Ghost Story in 2013. Muir House, a mockumentary horror film released in 2012, was based on it. So what do you think of the Monte Cristo Homestead? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, please like and subscribe.